James from All Hail Internal Combustion here. Still working on the Pontiac. Having an idle mixture issue with the car. Doesn't want to idle. Mess with the idle mixture screws, nothing happens. I'm going to pull it off and clean it real good and put it back on. It sat around for way too long. So, hoping to find some dirt or some grime or something. I have a fuel filter, but you know, those don't catch everything. And ethanol can play hell on carburetors. So, pretty easy. The accelerator cable was already unhooked. We unhooked it for wiring. And the springs were easy. Got your choke over here. Vacuum modulator for the transmission. PCV valve. And that's it. Take the fuel line off. It's a big lug over here. Mine's I'm sure I have the actual wrench around here somewhere. Usually it's not too tight, but this wrench is a piece of crap. So, need a bigger wrench. Let me grab one. 3/4. I got this banjo fitting rail for my Edelbrock here with my fuel gauge in it, but it's easy, just swings out of the way. And take our 1/2 inch. I like to go around all 4 bolts and just get them broken loose. Broken loose. Yep, loose. There we go. I love working on a motor with no hood. Now, be careful when you're doing stuff like this. You're going to pull this carburetor off. You don't want to forget one of your washers and drop it down your intake. Although it might not go far, but on some motors it might actually go pretty far. So actually I think on this one, drop right in the center. So no washers, no loose stuff, everything's good. Pull it off. I oiled that gasket before I put it on there. So, well, you can see down in that intake actually looks pretty clean. Looks like she's been running pretty clean. PCV valve's not doing horrible. But we're going to pull the top plate off this carburetor and see what its problem is. Here we got it on the bench. Pull my lower linkages off. My upper plate. That's choke, fast idle. These two. Another one. See, I use the pick and I grab it and put my thumb over top the pick and pull it out. You can buy a whole pack of those that if you have a Pep Boys, but if you don't have any kind of speed shop around you, you're kind of screwed. Online. There's 3 of those. It's your accelerator pump up front. Your choke arms. So take the accelerator pump screw out. Oh, sheesh. Okay, pull that out. Then we can unhook our accelerator pump. I don't think that's a necessity, but I usually just do it so everything comes out smooth. So same as anything else, you want to slightly break these loose. It's good practice. Work from the center out. Like a 1/2 turn on all these. You just take them out. Alright, I'm only running them out slowly. Don't break them loose with the impact, but let's make it go a little bit faster. Just a little bit. they're already broken loose, so it's not like I'm even impacting. Okay, well, we got them all. Okay, your metering rods, you could pull those out too, so they're not dangling around in there. That's of course going to be a smaller, probably the Torx I put away earlier. Just loosen these and fling them to the side. Rod, block, and spring. Rod, block, and spring. There we go. Okay. Ready to come off. You gotta try to be easy on your gasket, but I think I put this gasket on there, but even I didn't. We got spares sitting around, so check our float height. Looks like this bowl's completely empty. Got some sludge in the bottom of it. And this one's got some floaties around in it too. Acceleration pump don't look too bad. It's got a little bit of dirt. Wait a second. Oh, okay. That's normal. Let's pull the spring out of there. Accelerator pump spring. Your slosh diverters here. They normally come out. There we go. Okay. So we'll clean the chambers out here and take a closer look at our jets and make sure everything's clean in there. I want to try to avoid taking out the jets or the Venturis. They have little gaskets underneath of them. So if I could just maybe blow through this with some carbon choke and clean it up, that would be helpful. That's squirting just fine.
That's how you can check your accelerator pump. Get some gas over in this bowl. That's nice. Mine on my Ford, this is clogged up. There's a ball underneath of it with a weight. I got to get in there and my ball's stuck.
There's a spring in there too. So yeah, what we'll probably do is force some carbon choke down through here and make sure that it's coming out where it's supposed to, which should be right there, trickling in at the front of the primaries here. There should be holes in the bottom there, right? That's where they come through at. Oops,
you dumped all that gas out there, crazy.
Right there. So through these holes is where your idle circuit should come through, because when everything's closed off, it feeds enough gasoline to keep the car running.
Alright, one thing I did notice when we were taking this thing apart, we had a lot of this transfer slot showing. If you've got a lot of transfer slots showing, it basically makes your idle mixture screws not adjust anything, because you're pulling gas out of here, or fuel out of here, going down in there, so that basically cancels out your idle mixture screws. So yeah, the carb had some dirt in it, but we also had it set up a little bit wrong. So when we get this thing all cleaned out and blown out and everything else and put it back together, we're going to make sure that as little of that transfer slot is showing as possible. So see, if you look right there, you can barely see any of that transfer slot. That's about where we want to be. This will make our idle mixture screws up at the front of the carburetor let us adjust everything so we can get this thing running right.
Transfer slot is, and it's transferring from idle to throttle, so that transfer slot lets fuel through. We were playing around with this thing a lot to get it to try to idle and run, and so I think maybe dirt is part of the issue, but
Yeah, between it sitting
It
around
was
and
running
getting dirt in it and the transfer slot issue, that's where we lost our tunability. So basically a real good clean in, some fine adjustments, and we'll be back in good shape. So we're going to go ahead and start cleaning everything out on here.
So we're going to get back to getting this guy back together.
Under.
Oh, yeah. What am I doing? Look at me. Look at me making mistakes. Okay. And... oh, I don't think all this stuff goes on afterwards. So, drop our top plate on. I checked my float height. Of course, that wasn't really the issue we were having, so... oh, I put it on upside down. Man, just kidding. Oh, here it is. So you don't strip them out. That click, now you know it's in the spot. Put it down in there. Well, if you're putting a new gasket on in between the top plate and the bottom, you want to take a little bit of light motor oil and wipe both sides of the gasket down before you put it together. That's why I was able to reuse this gasket. When you pull these apart from the factory, those gaskets always rip. I mean, unless it hasn't been ran. But if the carburetor's been ran, they almost always rip. But if you oil it before you put it together, they don't rip. You know, and as you're tightening it down, make sure your accelerator pump's still working. It's not binding or anything like that. Make sure you don't drop anything down here, fall down into your motor. You can do this while it's on the car. I don't suggest it, but you could. Okay, I'm not tightening them all the way down yet, just snugging them up. Butterfingers. So just go ahead and start with this one. It doesn't have to be real tight. You know, you don't have to destroy the screws in the process of putting the top on. Some of these, the older models, were flatheads up top instead of torques. Let's go back through, make sure they're all evenly torqued. Oh, I did realize this one felt a little loose. Okay, so your top plate's back on. We can stick your metering rods back in. Spring goes down here. Now this metering rods, they take over right after your accelerator pump does. So as you can see, they're a needle, and Edelbrock sells a tuning kit that you get different size needles, different springs. the spring tension is important too. It's how fast this pops back up. So it's important. So when you get on, you know, these sink down because of vacuum. You want to make sure when you put these in, you see that one was binding. You want to make sure they move nice and easy. But they run down like this. And when you press on the gas and you open your throttle blades up, they open up. And the size of that needle and the size of the seat determines how much fuel is being sprayed in. And that comes in right behind your accelerator pump. So the accelerator pump gives the burst. Metering rods take over after that. These have nothing to do with idle at all. So we'll go ahead and hook our accelerator pump back up since it's so important. Yep. There's a particular way the S bracket goes in, and I could tell by the wear marks. You might have to spin your accelerator pump a little bit. It either sat in like this. I think it sat in the other way. Maybe it was just a little twisted. Oh, that looks good, doesn't it? Let's take this in and see how it operates. I think it goes the other way. Yeah, I think it goes the other way. It doesn't look right. It definitely does not go that way. So the bend definitely curves towards the front of the car. Or the front of the carb. I said car. Just like that. Again, with that, you want to thread it backwards to make sure you got brass going into some kind of pot metal. So you want to make sure that's... I'm going to show you the linkages here, you'll understand. So, see that sprays your blast of fuel in. Your idle screws. These are a little dirty. I'll pull them back out. Clean them up on the bench later.
And you want to check the tips on your idle mixture screws if you're buying a used carb to make sure these ain't all gummed up and broken or anything else, because if you over tighten them, they can break off and get stuck inside the carburetor.
Yeah, that's pretty much a trash carburetor. They should never be over tightened. There's no reason. You just tighten it in until lightly stops, basically. So, like, you don't use the screwdriver to tighten it in. So see that I could still break it loose with my fingers without even trying. That's tight. And you general rule of thumb, 1.5 to 2 turns. So that's kind of where the flathead screwdriver comes in, because you go half, whole, 1.5, 2. My car's kind of fat. It likes to have a fat idle mixture. It likes the heavy springs and the thin metering rods. So the metering rods are nice. So, you know, let's say you get this Edelbrock all tuned in and she's idling nice. Everything sounds good. Half, whole, 1.5, 2. Okay? So you get this tuned in. Your idle mixture screws got everything nice and leveled out. And, you know, you rev it a couple of times and it sounds like it's okay. And you take it out and you go to get on it. And the first thing it does is it just falls on its face as soon as you press on the gas. Like, you give it gas and it jumps and it just dies off. These metering springs have to be switched out. Sometimes just the springs, sometimes the needles. So this is kind of what I liked about these Edelbrocks, is when I started messing around with them, they're very user-friendly, and I could quickly learn how to adjust tunability and drivability on this carburetor. They're very, very user-friendly. A very new car guy could very easily pick up on how these operate very quickly. So basically, if it's not getting enough fuel when you're getting into it to go to take off, you know, after you get your shot from your accelerator pump, then, you know, you just need to make some adjustments. And I carry the kit when I'm tuning the car. I just carry it's a little plastic case like this, rods, springs, all that stuff in there, and I can just swap it out. It has jets too, but you have to pull the top plate off to do the jets, and I haven't had to do that much. So the 3 holes here is there's 3 holes on the accelerator pump, and you can play with that too. So if you push on the gas and it just doesn't do nothing but then comes to life, you could adjust your accelerator pump a little bit by adjusting these 3 holes. I guess the best way I've heard it explained is like, this is right in the middle. This is your hot rod setting, and this is just your putting around setting. You know, this is not real hot. It's not dumping a lot of fuel in. But by the throw of the arm down here, the non-notched end goes down. So with the throttle open, that gives you the most push down in there, the bottom slot. So that gives you the most blast of fuel. When you go to the second, it gives you less of a pump. See, it doesn't drive quite as far. You can really see it on the plunger up top. So anyway, I may have had that backwards actually. Now looking at it, that's the hottest setting because the accelerator pump's the highest inside the carburetor bore. So when you push down, it gives it a bigger squirt all at once. So sorry, I mixed those up. I was backwards. But so highest setting is the hottest setting. That's the most fuel because the plunger's all the way up in the body and is going to deliver the most fuel. And that literally just covers, that sprays right down here or right over here in the primaries. Where's the secondaries? Primaries, yeah. Oh, hot back of the carburetors towards me. Not used to looking at it like that. Okay. Now we're getting all our linkages hooked back up. Or nothing will work up top. These clips are very small. Especially for someone with fat fingers like me. I've lost many of these clips. Just when I think, oh, I think I'll go outside and tear my carburetor apart on this table. And oh, there goes that. Right into the gravel driveway. I don't think I'll ever find it again. So, there it is. It's all cleaned up. Just make sure everything's working properly. The fast idle. This is your adjustment screw for your fast idle. That's when you first start it up and it's cold. That holds the choke closed, but holds the throttle open at the same time. So then once the carburetor is warmed up and you press on the throttle, that fast idle falls out of place. So see, you get in the car, you pump the gas, fast idle kicks on because it's cold. So then you can adjust this. That's how much. This is basically your idle mixture while it's not your idle mixture.
Your idle speed.
Your idle speed while it's cold. So you can adjust that for when, and that literally only counts when it is cold. It's best to make your adjustments first thing in the morning when it's cold on that. Once it's warmed up even just a little bit, you shouldn't even mess with it. So let's put our metering rod plates back down. Get those tightened up. That is this one, right? So there it is. We're going to throw this back on the car. Get it dialed back in. I got to put the collectors back on the headers. And we'll be ready to go. But this has been James from All Hail Internal Combustion. Little quick preview on the Edelbrock 4-barrel. This is what, a 700? I think this is.
That one's a 600.
Yeah, 600. It's a 1950 or 1406. So I think the 1405, 1406 are identical, just different jetting and stuff. But anyway, make sure you like and subscribe. We'll see you later. Alright, so we got the headers in, gaskets tightened down, collectors hooked back up, power steering bracket back on, alternator hooked back up, and everything finalized. Got the carburetor kind of primed. So, did an oil change. We're going to go ahead and start it up. See how those new headers sound. James from All Hail Internal Combustion. Make sure you like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more. We'll see you next time.